right, let's call to order. Welcome, everyone. This is the special joint meeting with the Administrative Services Committee and the Ways and Means Committee. We are here today to consider and act on the following proposed resolution, which is available to the public on the town's website. Resolution authorizing an appropriation of $7,650,000 for the Walsh Intermediate School Field Improvement Project and the financing of said appropriation by the issuance of general obligation bonds of the town and notes in anticipation of such bonds in an amount not to exceed $7,650,000 thereof. Thanks everybody for attending, and we'll start with the roll call for the Admin Services Committee.
All right, roll call. Representative Edelman.
Present.
Representative Alphone.
Here.
Representative Larson, that's me. Representative Verderan.
Here.
Representative McCall.
Here.
Representative Toohill.
Here.
Representative McCormick. Absent.
And for the Ways and Means Committee, Representative Black.
Here.
Representative Brooks.
Present.
Representative Hines.
Here.
Representative Waterman.
Here.
And I'm John Hartwell, the chair.
All right, and so today, we're gonna have some people come up and speak about the project and the resolution. Is Jamie, First Selectman Cosgrove here?
Here he is.
Oh, here he is.
Right on time. Mr.
Perfect
Chairman.
timing. He heard us calling. So, hello, First Selectman Cosgrove. So you and I had spoken. I indicated we'd like to hear from you first tonight on the project.
Sure.
We had opened up the meeting and taken attendance, read the resolution,
Okay,
and there you are, perfect timing.
all right, great. So as you just stated, you have a resolution before you to fund the Walsh Intermediate School Field Improvement Project. Just to give, first we'll give a little background, brought us to this point, and then I'll turn it over to Dominic Saltruda, the landscape architect for BL Companies, who will walk you through the presentation of the project.
Excuse me 1 second, First Selectman Cosgrove. Sir?
We can't hear you in the back.
Okay.
It's not amplified.
That's not amplified. Okay.
So to the public,
All right, I'll
to
just,
the public, we're sorry about the layout here. The seats are designed in a way that was favorable for the television. So we're sort of set where we were supposed to be. So we'll try to keep our voices up so everybody can hear us. Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, that at the RTM meeting and to the members that I've met with since, it's important to note that this is a school improvement project. This project was first initiated at the Board of Ed through the previous superintendent. Had engaged the architect firm that was designed the middle school as they were wrapping up that project to develop a concept to improve the fields for the school. I'm sure many in this room are aware the field improvements were not part of the Walsh Intermediate renovation expansion project. Primarily it was removed from the ed specs of the project, primarily due to limited, if any, state reimbursement that the town would be able to avail themselves to in undergoing that level of improvement. So as the project wound down, I think there was, and it's important to note that, you know, over the years, I'm sure the board has heard, and the Board of Recreation as well as Board of Selectmen have heard from a number of constituency groups, stakeholders, for the need to improve the fields that we have in Branford. However, going back to a few years ago, at the Board of Ed level, the previous superintendent did engage a firm to do develop a concept to meet the programmatic needs of the school district in improving their fields. That there was a presentation that was made to the Board of Ed in consultation with the superintendent. We discussed this. He had transmitted essentially that project to the town. If there was an opportunity where we would be making improvements, again, I think the initial concept was really looking at kind of replacing what we had there, and also limiting it to really meeting the programmatic needs of the school. However, we saw this as an opportunity to enhance the design to also accommodate the needs of the broader community. So that, as I said, the project was essentially transmitted to me to undertake. I then assembled a group of people who served that represented various sports organizations here in Branford, representatives from the school district. They had a facilities supervisor, the athletic director at the time. We had a phys ed teacher, who was also a coach and parent, as well as I said, parents and representatives of various sports organizations here in Branford. We formed a committee. They assisted in developing an RFP, which that's request for qualifications, request for proposals. We had a number of respondents on that. We interviewed those firms that responded and ultimately selected BL to undertake the design development of the project that you have now before you. I'm sure Dominic Saltruda could get into the process, but just to give a high-level view, he not only met with, again, the group that did the interviews and that represented the sports group, but really this was really focused on addressing first and foremost the programmatic needs of the school. So you'll see things as some amenities for recess, outdoor classroom space, things of that nature. Also, which is not only a programmatic need for the school, but really a need of our community, addressing the accessibility issues. That field and that complex really has really no accessibility. And that's, I think, something we wanted to address, and we did accomplish through this project as well. This project has since gone through all the regulatory process, wetlands, unanimous approval, planning and zoning, which had a public hearing component to that, unanimous approval, Board of Finance, and now it is here before this body. So at this time, unless there's any specific questions regarding that, I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. I think it'd be, I'll turn it over to BL to give a presentation of the scope of the project.
Do any of the committee members have any questions for the selectmen?
Not at this time.
No, yeah, why
Not this time?
don't we
Okay.
hold those?
All right. Thank you. And for those in the back, if you're still having trouble hearing, there's some seats over here that might be a little bit closer to the speaker that we'll be addressing at the time. Thank you, Jamie. So Dominic Trudeau will address us now.
I can bring in the graphic if you want.
Please.
I'll try to be loud. I like to talk loud. It's in my nature. For the record, Dominic Saltruda, with BL Companies. I'm the principal and lead landscape architect for BL. I'm out of the Hartford, Connecticut, one of our Constitution Plaza office, as well as the Meriden office. I go between both now. A couple of quick comments. We'll bring it over. I think we can set up over here so the people at home can see it. If everyone in the audience can't see it, that's completely okay. We'll have time to look at it. It's a small board. This is a tough room to use. On the short notice, I couldn't bring a projector. We'll go there. That's the best camera out at the angle. That's fine. We can open it up. For people that are at home in the audience, the image that we're using tonight is also at www.branfordathleticfacilities.com. That's part of the other part of the project. You can scroll through there. There is a plan on there that we're going to show tonight. I'm gonna do a quick, if you want, like 5-minute synopsis of the project. Jamie did a great job addressing, first and foremost, we interviewed for this about a year and a half ago, competitively with other firms. And the approach we took is once we started looking at the study, which is the athletic study, and also looking at the middle school, it really came bubbling to the top that the middle school, no matter what the studies panned out, we knew that there had to be athletic and/or recreational improvements. That's probably fine. These guys have to see it more than anybody else right now. We'll give plenty of time to the audience. I apologize. I'm going to walk you around that plan. It's that you guys have it in your packet, great. So you guys turn it to the outside if you guys have it all in your packet. I'm going to walk around it anyway. So the approach we took, just so you understand, a little bit about my team's career. We have an athletic and recreational team at BL Companies comprised of landscape architects, planners, engineers, structural people, pretty much anything you can think of that goes into a recreational type plan. But on the school side, we also have people that work with schools. My entire 25-year career has been devoted to municipal type projects. It doesn't mean I don't work on private projects. You might see my name associated with a Dollar General here and there, things along those lines. But my passion is the outdoor spaces of both educational, recreational, and open space. Within that, when we see an opportunity and we follow throughout the state of Connecticut, an opportunity where, as Jamie discussed, where we have accessibility issues, we have an outdoor programmatic area for a giant middle school. We do a great job. We spend a lot of money on it. We want to make sure the environmental benefits are addressed with the educational outdoor space. And then when I got in and started talking with the superintendent, understanding that recess exists at this middle school, a lot of recesses don't, but you have that 5th grade tailing behind. We want a positive indoor-outdoor cohesion between the school, accessibility, not only for people with special needs and/or mobility needs, but also the accessibility for the bus loops, the multimodal, and making sure that we're kind of tying into bicycles, but then that need around the site. Our first look at this site is wet. We know that. We went out there. I sunk at least 3 inches in my funny shoes, my decor shoes, in the track the first time I ever set foot on the track. So we knew that we had a wet site, but we considered that a challenge. So we looked at some different open concepts. In tandem, we had to realize that we were running a study for the town as well for the athletic fields. First and foremost, we knew going in you had one artificial. That's another artificial, but we always do a one-on-one. We'll get onto that in a minute. When you start walking your way around the site, and we're going to talk existing site first before that, the way it sits today, you have 2 fields. You actually have 3 different elements. We figured the site in terms of the softball field, and when I mean 3 elements on the major fields, you have a football field, field hockey field behind it or above on your page, and there's a baseball diamond out there, way out in the left-hand corner of the screen. And then you have the softball field. We'll leave the softball field alone because we always figured that was going to be in flux and stay on the site. There's a high adventure course out there, swing sets, basketball courts, and a few other amenities that kind of cater to the site, such as storage facilities as a trailer and a shed. There is a few other things too. So what we started looking at is the site was over-programmed, if you can believe that. We looked at the uses that were on site, and we said, well, baseball really was over-programmed, and we said, can we pull back the buffers when we do improve the fields? Now, at the very beginning of this project, we looked at artificial, we looked at turf. That's one thing for the big fields. What I want to do is I want to walk you around before we get into the fields. I'm sure that's one of the bigger items on the schedule, bigger items on the site. We started looking at the quality of the student experience once they walk out the doors. First thing was that accessible. So all the walkways that you see meandering through the basketball courts, and we tried to be cognizant of the amount of impervious surface we were adding. So walkways do segment between the basketball court and the play court to the left-hand side of it. You'll see some colorful imagery right in the center. Those are Foursquare and Hopscotch. We had those in there. They exist on site today in a different location, but we wanted to be sensitive to make sure we had accessibility and mobility to all facets of that are out there. We also had to adhere to some state rules when it comes to the schools. Every use area has to be accessible to the use area, to the viewing area. So we wanted to make sure we did that. You'll see some walkways that wrap around the softball field. We needed to do that to make sure we had areas for people with limited needs that they can get to both the activity areas and the area to actually participate. Then we started thinking about the outdoor experience, both educational and recreational. When I mean recreational, I mean athletics, getting the kids out there to either participate in physical education outdoor activities or be there after school playing some sports, organized sports or controlled sports with with the school. So we started looking at the activity areas. Oddly enough, there's a lot of swings out there right now. So we wanted to keep the amount of swings out there, but we segmented them. There's a gang set in the middle, and we made them inclusive, so we added smaller level swings and larger kid swings. And then there's another set up front, and then we added some playscape elements, some climbers and the like. And we did it to balance out the school use and the use of the community. We put them in position in such a way that after school they can be easily accessible for moms and dads to come down and utilize that space. We wanted an outdoor classroom. If you've ever stood out there, the grade change from the school, it goes down to the fields. We took that advantage and we put an outdoor classroom, basically a natural bermed area or amphitheater, small. 20 or 30 kids could fit in there with a paved area where the teacher could go out and teach a class. Likewise, we added an environmental outpost on the left-hand side out past the track, and we'll explain the track in a second. That is because we added some of the elements that we needed to add for give back to the site. We're giving back over 2.5 acres of buffer to the wetlands around the entire site. We're pulling, if you're out there right now, the lawn goes all the way up to the water. We're pulling that back in a ways. We are lifting this field approximately 1.5 to 2 feet above its existing grade. We're doing that for 2 reasons. 1, holding capacity for water, and 2, so we can drain it, and 2, so we can provide that accessible link to the actual school. We needed to grab some grade change within that system. Sorry, we have both. Just want to make sure that he's all set and there's one here so I can at least follow along. So now we'll talk about the field. Out there they had an existing track that ran around a football field. We knew when we wanted to improve both fields, whether, however the field's laid out, we wanted to make a walking surface, a surface that's going to be resilient around both fields that can be used. If you see on the right-hand side, you'll see some white lines. Those are actually the 100-yard dash lines, but they also have a marked mile that they can accommodate that. It's bigger than a normal high school track, but it provides a nice surface with some curved corners at all 4 corners, so they can run around basically and get their exercise in, do their mile for the federal government, whatever they need to do in terms of physical fitness. Now the fields themselves are smaller. They're the same size as what's out there, but we've condensed everything together into a compact field system. We went with an artificial turf system for a number of reasons. One reason being you have one in town, and the study kind of reiterated it. I've done this for a long time. Usually when you do one, you want to do 2. So you can basically alternate, but it also staggers them throughout their lifespan. So when you take one offline, you have one on. We gave 2 because we figured when we consolidated and condensed this in, it made more sense to have them on the same level in terms of the drainage. Within the fields, we're marking for, first and foremost, organized sports that are within the school. So field hockey is marked on that. Historically, this is used for the younger football, so football is marked on it. Soccer is marked on both. One is a little thinner than the other. Then we've got both male and female lacrosse marked on these fields. Doesn't mean that you can't mark other things in the future. You can run different types of clinics on here. It's a good alternative to it. One thing you'll notice on both the softball field, actually I'll talk about the softball field for a second, and I got to orient everybody. Right field is right to the right of the basketball courts. That's your right field if you're looking from home plate. That was short. We actually made it a little bit bigger so we could actually accommodate a good sized softball field on this site. So we actually cut that down. The roadway you see just below that, kind of meanders through the site, is the emergency access path that exists today. We had to retain that. That runs from the parking lot all the way to the trail that goes up to the residences, and we kind of reconfigured that, made it wide enough to accommodate within that feature. A couple of added things that we looked at was there's going to be some lighting we're going to talk about probably tonight too, right? The 2 fields that we're looking at lighting, there are 2 posts or 2 poles on the ends. You can kind of see them in the dead center. They're big circles, and there's 2 poles on either side. All right, so those are the 4 poles, the 6 poles that run that field. On the softball field, there are 2 flanking either side of home plate on either zone, and then there's 2 further out from that, down the 3rd baseline, the 2nd baseline, one's near the basketball court, and there's a single pole in the rear. Those are used to light those. It's a newer technology, LEDs. We can talk about that if you guys have questions on that. One thing you'll see in the Derrick Center is we're proposing a new restroom facility out there as well for weekends and use during both school day and non-school day. I should talk about the blobs. So you're going to see these green blobs that sit right behind the restroom facility in the middle, on the top of the screen, all the way to the top, and then there's a secondary little, almost looking like a kidney-shaped blob. Those are used as part of the drainage system, but they are essentially rain gardens. The two bigger ones, the one near the restroom and the one to the upper left-hand corner are rain gardens, and then there's a pollinator garden that's designated right behind that rain garden as well. And that's why we situated that educational nook or overlook area out there, so we can afford opportunities. Like I said, all the green you see around the track system is about 2 to 2.5 acres of reclaim. We're basically going to be converting conservation mix back in there. We figure you mow a couple of feet off of the track itself. The rest of it can go natural, be mowed once time a year, if that. It speaks volumes to obviously not having to mow that, use the labor times on those, things along those lines. I think that's the long and short of, that's probably the unabridged version. If you have questions, we can get to those as well.
No, that's good, yeah. I just wanted to welcome Jamie.
Okay. All right, thank you so very much. Are there any questions from anybody on either of the committees?
I have a few questions, if you don't mind me asking.
Absolutely.
So let's start with my first question. It's probably a dumb question, so bear with me. The restrooms, those would be hooked into the school,
Correct.
so it's not, you don't need a leach field, you would just hook that into the school.
No, we did some extensive research, and there were some transitions in obviously the Board of Ed and their facilities, but we were able to gather off the corner, I'm gonna orient myself, basically the corner closest to the basketball courts. We're gonna make a cut across there. We've got water and sewage that we can do that. There'll be a small pump system right next to the bathroom itself. We're gonna do 2 unisex bathrooms, small prefab building. And then it's gonna have an area in the back that can accommodate some of the electrical systems and things like that.
So that would be my next question. So let's say I had a softball team and we wanted to play at night and we got permission from someone. Where would the lights, to control the lights, where would that be?
The controllers for the lights, there's going to be a couple of different areas for that. We're working with the vendor, and obviously it could be multiple vendors. There's going to be, and it's not shown on this plan, there's going to be an access panel to the left of that building, between that building and the field. There's going to be an external panel in there. The way the controllers are run and the way the power has to run to facilitate this facility, we're going to run some of it in the building, but there'll be an access panel outside adjacent to that building. However, and I don't want to speak for the town, I think there'll be some coordination on how they run the times for the fields, and the new technology, it can be turned on and off literally with a cell phone. Not by you, but by someone who's designated to do so.
Yeah, they don't want to let me do that.
No.
I can promise.
He doesn't have a cell phone.
And then, so my next question. This is probably. I mean, you
These are good
explained
questions.
it.
Yep.
You explained it, and I'm appreciative of that. So what is the? There has to be a downside for a turf field to a grass field. I know what the upside is. I mean, the upside is, there's, you don't. It's not going to get damaged from use. It's not. I mean, but what are the downsides? And I don't care about rug burn. We all get it.
The jury's out. Yeah, in terms of athletic injuries, the jury's out. If you maintain a Fenway Park or a Yankee Stadium, I'm not going to get into that argument tonight, or the Mets, or wherever you guys root for, or the Patriots or the Giants, and therefore some of them work on artificial turf, and they say that there's more injuries. I think the jury's out. If you well maintain, like Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium, injuries are lessened, but none of us rise to that point with natural turf. Artificial turf, it's a different feel for the players. They have to get used to it. If they played at the high school, it's going to be similar to the high school experience. We're putting a bigger GeoShock pad on this field because it is a middle school, so it's a pad that goes beneath the surface of that fill material. Injuries aside, there's education that has to be involved. If we've got a bloodborne pathogen issue, you have to irrigate with water. You don't want to use bleach, which we sometimes do even on the lawn area. Sometimes You want to make sure you don't degrade the carpets at that point. There is questions, and you might as well bring them up, crumb rubber, PFAS, and microplastics. We addressed all of those during both the inland wetlands, and we had a discussion during planning and zoning. We've taken some steps in terms of, it's going to answer one of the questions I was given already. In our specifications, we call for independent testing before anything comes on site, especially the sub-bases, the base material, the infill, and the carpet themselves. We have it written right into the specifications that we have to have complete non-PFAS, obviously, in all the materials that come on site, and the vendors have stepped up on that. Microplastics, we put a belt and suspenders on this. We don't feel we're going to get much wear on microplastics, but however, for infill migration on the low end, I should state from the bottom of your page, the entire field pitches at about 0.5% all the way to the other end. And we didn't need a top drain, but we put one in as a catchment. So we have those covered. Outside of that, it's usually theft and damage in terms of somebody unruly going out there. We've provided some slide gates and things like that so we don't get somebody doing donuts on it in the middle of the night. It happens. I just want to let you guys know that. In terms of the financial, they're pretty much a balance. The argument can go either way. There's more upfront costs with with synthetic, but there's a long-term higher cost with organics in terms of level of maintenance and labor. Labor is the big one. No matter what you do in terms of this, the labor is half on an artificial turf field than it is on the grass, you might think, but it's filling up with fuel, it's mowing it, it's aerating, and they spend time out there, even if it's not of the town's labor. I know the private ones that use this field go out there, they put the shade tarps in, and they try to grow the grass better, things along those lines. So, hope that answered. And by the way, I'm going to make a comment. There is no stupid questions. There isn't. There really
You haven't
isn't.
known me long
You
enough.
know, Josh? Just a reminder to those that are speaking to try to keep your voice up. There's a lot of people in the back.
Sorry,
I
right.
want to make sure that everybody has
You
a
can yell at me, guys. So
good
you're
chance.
too
And even for asking the questions. Josh, do you have something else?
Sorry, I watched your presentation to the Board of Ed, and one thing I noticed different from then to now was that the half-court basketball court originally was a paddleball court when you were at the Board of Ed. I remember it specifically because I was like, wow, that's pretty progressive. No? Are you telling me no?
I don't think it is, but if you say it was, we took 2 non-conforming basketball courts out and we gave them one regulation
Right,
basketball
right.
court. That other court can be anything it wants to be.
Okay.
We call it a sport court. We have it striped as basketball, but it can change to anything it wants. They might see in the future that they want to add a different activity there. We also try to provide flexibility. If you see there's some green spaces that are undefined, like just south of that or south on the board, down past the swing set, there's a big giant green area. That could be something. We've gotten some comments, and I said, well, there can be some program that may not be part of this project, but the school can program some of these projects. I think one of the mentions was Gaga Pit, so and that could go in there. But we're kind of we were tied to like a rough budget, so we want to try to meet that budget.
Thank you.
Representative Waterman, did you have a question?
Yes, so I have a
Keep your voice
question.
up, please.
Yes, question, and it may be also between you and Chris Lecker of Cosgrove. So originally, your company did a gap analysis of fields use or needs in Branford, and the one thing that was needed was a turf field, one additional turf field. So is it and it was my understanding, and is it you're just to talk about, is that, will this project and this, will that then cover the needs of fields in Branford?
No.
Long term, so,
The final report is been vetted, it's in there. I can speak to the final report a little bit. We did the gap analysis, we realized you have too many baseball fields. It doesn't sound like you do, but some of them could come offline. We did a projection on the demographic use of both the town and the surrounding communities. We know we need more pickleball courts, so to speak. Even though it was an athletic fields event, pickleball courts rang around loud and clear on that you see a need for them. In terms of the fields, most of it is improvements to some existing fields and reconfiguration. I apologize. I'm taking lozenges just so I really I don't know where the moisture went from my throat. I apologize to them about that. But it solves a growing need for this programming on this field, on this site. Like I said, we're looking at the fields, but this is a site improvement project first and foremost. It does aid in reducing the amount of fields that are required later on. It plays a critical role in that. However, we wanted to make sure, first and foremost, it's a school. And it's going to be school use, 3/4 of the year, half the year, let's say, from 8 in the morning till X amount in the afternoons. Outside of that, then it goes to the community. So there's some community-based fields that are going to need improving that are not part of the school system. Answer that all right to the school board and their comments? Okay.
I guess just the question, because in terms of, my perspective as an RTM member, in terms of funding for the field versus other needs in town. So then, it's your then seeing is that this is one field and that there will be future requests for addition, maintenance, and for additional fields. This is not.
I would say that, yeah, it's not a one and done in terms of that. However, the plan is like a 10 to 15 year plan, so that it doesn't have to all come at one time. And it's a best case scenario, it's a living document, the master plan. So as 10 years ago, there was no one around here played pickleball. Well, people did. We knew about it. We knew it was moving across the country, but that's a new thing. So you want to revisit and say, well, do we need pickleball? Do we need that? This does solve some of the problems in terms of scheduling, because you don't have some of those fields that go offline. You can utilize this field during off-peak hours and on weekends during the school year in the summertime. If you look at the report, we also look at usabilities for this field. This solves a problem where at some point you're going to need to replace the carpet at the high school, and this can be a substitute field as that is being done, or as it starts to degrade, because it's a good gap to when the replacement happened on that field that you have those balancing acts. It comes down to individual projects, and that's the way we talked about it. We gave a roadmap in the master plan, but each project can be vetted on its own merits. We were well balanced. There were portions of the community that are underserved, that deserve to have a better park in their portion of the town. There are certain overlying factors where you have some of the bigger organizations where we try to strike a balance. This was a balance of the needs of the educational process, the outdoor needs for their program, and the athletics. Some other areas we try to balance out. We always we give a priority to the recommendations, and we say, what's going to have the biggest bang for the buck, and what's going to accommodate the most individuals, residents of the community. Does that answer the question or not?
Can you tell us when that plan's gonna be available?
I'm delivering it, I was supposed to deliver it a couple of weeks ago, but we got some delay on it, but it's pretty much ready to be delivered to the town any day now.
John,
And
I
does
think
does that plan also have estimates for cost?
It's gonna have programming estimates for cost for those.
I think it's important to note, this is a standalone project. This is not part of the rest of the fields.
Correct.
What we're looking at, what the funding is for this project, which enhances the Walsh Intermediate School. And the need, those fields haven't been touched since I want to say 71. So I think we're going off on a tangent, trying to bring up the other fields. I know it'll be a cost eventually, but right now, this is what's on the table. And I think it's important that we delineate between the two.
Representative Toohill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back in around 2002, I was on the RTM, and we had a lot of discussion about whether the new high school field should be, turf or artificial. At the time, the superintendent was Dr. Bruce Storm. So, we heard all sorts of information about both types of fields. And because that's kind of a small field, gets a lot of use, it's by the river there, and the idea was to go with the artificial. And over the years, I think, it's really held up very well. And then, when it was replaced around 2014, 2015 or so, there wasn't any debate at all. Everybody agreed on, the artificial turf. So, thank you.
No,
Thank you.
and the thing was,
Keep your voice up, sir.
sorry, there wasn't a question there, but I will agree with you on that in terms of, we're trying to balance out that need so you can extend the life, because it all comes down to the hours of use on the field. And if the field's getting a lot of use, not just by athletics, but by like band competitions, things along those lines, extracurriculars within the community, you can balance that out.
Any other question? Representative Black?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just a couple questions. One's probably in some of the submissions, but the surface for the track, what is that?
It's bituminous.
Pardon?
It's a bituminous track. It's like a
Bitumen-
walkway.
Okay,
yes.
asphalt.
It's asphalt,
Not
yes.
rubberized asphalt,
No,
just asphalt.
nope. Had to keep the costs down somewhere. A couple of those
I was a
items.
track guy,
I'd
so
love
I was
it to be.
disappointed
And
that
the
it
thing is,
wasn't
it's more like a walking surface. I mean, it'll be
Yeah.
nice. It's a nice controlled loop for the community. They can run. It's better than what they have now, and we always go to asphalt because you can always add a surface later on.
And I guess there's two separate swing areas there. Okay,
Yeah, if you direct your attention, the primary swing area, or there's two swing areas.
Okay.
There's one associated just primary right near the basketball courts, and then there's a swing area with a climbing apparatus to the right or to center field of the softball field.
just means we're a swinging town, that's all. Okay.
Easy over there.
And this more for, I see the chairman of the Board of Ed and the superintendent in the back. The Board of Ed is signed on to maintaining the restrooms that are gonna be in this complex, or what's the, okay, I see a head nodding. This isn't being thrown at you without your knowledge. I know you've been in on this. So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from the committee?
Do I have permission to start asking questions to other people in the room, or are we just asking him questions at this point?
I think we're going to just stick with him for one moment.
Okay.
All right, so are there any other RTM members in the audience want to have any questions for Mr. Siltruda or comments? Representative Black? I'm sorry.
Henschel.
Representative Henschel, excuse me. Two Peters. Two Peters.
Peter Henschel, Second District Representative on the RTM. I have some questions for Dominic, and I have some questions for the First Selectman. I know this project, I think, has been quite well received by the town. So my questions are basically technical, process related. But for Dominic, and I've given him these questions so he doesn't have to remember them. A project cost estimate. Was the BL estimate generated based on full working drawings and specifications? I'll ask all of them and then you come back. The second is regarding soft costs, have they been included in the estimate and the bond request amount? The third was, do you feel the contingency amount that you included in the estimate is going to be adequate for the unknown elements? And next section is on project bidding. Basically, are the bid documents complete and ready to go out to bid at this point? Second question is the form of bid going to be CM or GC? And then based on the construction schedule, I know you gave some detail in the Board of Finance presentation about the various elements of the schedule, but has a critical path schedule been generated for the project, or are you leaving the construction company that's selected to do the project? And can you give us, just in broad terms, sort of reiterate what you gave to the Board of Finance and an outline of the various elements of the schedule? And then the last, I know there are going to be a lot of questions probably coming from the public about the artificial turf and the fields, but you partially answered the question about the specification for the turf and the fact that it's excluding the use of PFAS and I think maybe one or two other elements, but are you in fact specifying that the artificial turf exclude the use of any hazardous materials and require testing for basically all of the basically known hazards? The last is, I think you sort of answered, but you mentioned the fields are going to be lit. I'm assuming that's going to be adequate for full nighttime events and not just early evening events. Why don't you answer those and then I'll ask the First Selectman.
You got it.
Mr. Siltruda, when you answer those, Just for purposes of the television recording, could you repeat the question? that you're
Absolutely,
answering
absolutely.
into the microphone?
Anything.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'm getting good, and I'll say it loud so people can hear it in there
Perfect.
as well. First question was, what was the BL estimate generated based on full working drawings and specifications? The answer is absolutely. We do a series of internal QC checks during our different design levels that we walk through: concept, schematics, design development, and then final CDs. It is refined. It was refined as of I think November, December of last year. So it is based on those. Soft costs are included, and they're at the bottom line of our estimate. Bond requests are in the specification, and they're put out there in terms of a couple of different structures. I'm sorry, that was soft costs included in the estimate and bond request. Do you feel the contingency amount in the estimate is adequate? We put a 10% contingency on this project. We feel it is adequate. I will put a caveat on that. Over the last 2 years, we've seen some really wacky things go on, and we've built in some costs or some items in terms of doing that. We've seen bids level off a little bit. Some of the after COVID hangover in terms of supply and demand has gone down. A lot of it is just delays in terms of actually getting raw materials. We're still having some steel problems in the industry, as well as PVC has been a problem. But yes, we've built that contingency based on the available data, not only from estimating through state type contracts, but also our private contracts that we've dealt with in the last 6 months. Project bidding. Are the bid documents complete and ready to go? The drawings are done, the specifications are done. We have placeholders in the specifications because we have to bring them to the financial people in town. They got to issue a bid number. We got to put final dates on and things like that. But yes, they're all packaged and ready to go. Will the form of contract be CM or GC? I believe it's going to be a general contractor for this project. Construction schedule. Has a critical path schedule been generated for the project? We provide a day chart for them, but we also work with them on that critical path schedule. I can't tell them means and methods. We can kind of get an idea of when things are going to happen. Full disclosure, when we talked to you guys before, we were planning on being out to bid by now, so we're going to have to push that schedule a little bit in terms of what we discussed at the last couple of meetings. Obviously, you just keep moving that schedule forward, and you're going to get the same amount of time frame. Please outline the schedule in broad terms. You know, we'd like to get out to bid. It's going to take a little while for that bid to go out, be advertised, grapple it. We'd like to bid it right away. We're in prime bid time right now. I'm not going to lie to you about that. Anybody who works in construction knows this is the time when they're lining up the projects. We wait too much longer. We're going to fall back a line on some of this, and this is a very decent project. We don't grease skids, but people know it's out there because of the public meetings. We have entertained some phone calls. We don't give out any information about the project. It's not ours to give out at this point. Schedule in broad terms, we'd like to be underway by now, or award by now, or within a month. You're looking at mobilization probably April, May. Full disclosure, we'd like a little earlier than that if we can do it. But to push this project, you're looking at 12 to 15, depending on how we lay it out. Hopefully that's kind of sitting the way it sits. It's not a very complicated project. It is a project that we're going to have to sit and make them understand the ramifications of both wetlands, the areas that we have to do for reclamation, and then how they're going to have to back out of the site. Some of that's going to be dictated by materials and means and methods from the contractor. Artificial turf fields. Do the turf specifications exclude use of hazardous materials and require testing for the same? Yes, they do. We have a 3-part specification for artificial turf. We have a separate specification just for the warranties on it. Not that you care about that, but you should, in terms of making sure it's installed correctly. We have a very stringent specification process both for the sub-base, the base, the carpets that go on it, the shock pad, which is a pad that goes underneath, and it goes to all the industry understood standards. Some of them, obviously, but we test everything. Like I said, the biggest thing is testing everything before it comes on site or it's even requisite. There are 4 or 5 major companies that do this type of work. We have built-in installer qualifications that have to be done during pre-bid. We're going to have, make them understand the gentlemen that are going to be working on this project or speccing this project, both the manufacturers and the installers have to have a laundry list of qualifications to do this type of work. And that's all been built into the specification package and built into the budget. I think you're wrong. Oh, will the fields be lit for the evening? Yes. We did a pretty extensive look through a couple of different manufacturers. We have basically not a competitive cost to light both fields. We're bringing the power in to light both fields. I think it will be lit at night. I think that's something that's going to be worked out with the town in terms of the specific hours. There may be nights where it's never on because there's no use this time of year. Maybe there is this time of year. You don't know. I think those parameters are worked out. There is a couple of zoning parameters that follow that. It is for competitive use. It is dark sky compliant to a field specification, but we also had to achieve a specification level that we felt necessary, just in case the high school utilizes it, since it is a middle school, so it is the CIC specifications. There are a few, and if you went to the planning and zoning meetings, highball lights, which actually shine upward. It sounds like you can't be dark sky compliant with it, but you can be. It's tracking. It's called ball tracking, so when you have a pop-up in softball, or if you get one of these guys that kicks a mile up in the air for football, it doesn't go above the lights because the technology, the way the lights are now, is so precise in aiming them. You can, if you go above it, you might not see it. So they have to have these ball trackers during competitive play, but they can be turned off if you're out there doing generalized type of, just out there for like either running around the track or something like that. Full cutoff, so only the they've really dialed it in terms of the lighting. It only lights the fields. It's like night and day. One of the pictures that was brought up, and you can go on the website for, we reached out to two different manufacturers. Musco gave us one. They have a planetarium telescope thing right next to one of their fields. Doesn't even affect the telescopes at night to look at the stars. It's pretty interesting. I think you're on.
Thank you, sir.
I can't.
Representative Henschel.
Peter?
Representative Henschel, if you want to ask some questions of Jamie, why don't you sit there and just so the microphone can pick up the recording.
He's not on my
You'll live.
He's not on our committee.
Just a few
Not gonna
questions for
catch
the,
anything.
3 District 2 guys.
few questions for the first selectman on the Walsh School closeout. I had heard, I think in the Board of Finance meeting, that the closeout of the Walsh School project is just about at the completion point, and that they anticipate there may be somewhere in the vicinity of $2 million in unused funds from the bond for the Walsh School itself. So my question to you is, if whatever that amount is, if it is determined, and before you go out to actually get the bond for this project, will you apply those funds to this project and therefore reduce the bond that you request for this project? That's one question. The other is, if we have an estimate of the project cost and a request for a bond amount that equals the estimate, but if, when we get the bids in, they exceed the what's been authorized, are you going to value engineer the project, or are you going to request additional funds to cover whatever the shortfall would be? And then another unrelated to the cost of it, on the use of the fields, I think it's the case, but I assume that these fields will be available for the general community to use outside of the scheduling that the school might, scheduled use that the school might put toward them. And in our area of neighboring communities, I know that there are a lot of young athletic leagues, baseball leagues, soccer leagues, et cetera, where different communities compete against each other. Will these fields be available, again, outside of the required use for the town, for that type of use, inter-town use in addition?
Intertown use?
Yeah.
All right, so just getting back to the, I'll start with, if the bids come in and they exceed the authorization, what is authorized, will we value engineer the project? I think that's really all, it depends on where the numbers come in. I will just also mention, it is since Dominic, and I think Dominic mentioned it, he thought it was around this past fall where they revised those numbers, took another look at those numbers, carried contingency as this project, we started sliding a little bit. Our appropriation or authorization is slightly above what even that November ask was. I think we bumped it up to, I think initially it was about 7527, 812 is what you have in front of you in that sheet. We did the request is now at $7,650,000. So we did give that a slight bump. In terms of where we had a favorable outcome, or we expect with the Walsh project, and you may have heard that, or you did hear that it was mentioned that we may have a balance, cash balance there. And will that be? We can't. You're authorizing and you're appropriating dollars, and that was for this project. When we which gives us the ability to move forward with this project. The finance director who is here, he will evaluate when we need to go to the market and when we need to raise cash. So, he doesn't always author or issue bonds for the full authorization or appropriation. Sometimes, for instance, the Walsh Intermediate School, right? That was, you gave an authorization for appropriation for $88.2 million project. We needed that full authorization. However, we didn't go and bond that much because we knew we were going to have state reimbursement coming in, and that's typical with some other projects with grants. So, as far as what will happen with that balance that is left over, I mean that'll be determined. I think it'll start at the Board of Finance through a recommendation from the finance director. And that those dollars will have to be repurposed towards a project.
But I guess my question would be if you decide to go that route, and apply it to some other project, will that expenditure go back through a Board of Finance and RTM approval process, or do you get to short circuit it because you already have the money?
No. So so those dollars are specific for that project.
Right.
Right, so we can't then take those dollars and go do something else with it and say, oh, well, we already have the money, right? It's your bond resolution is very specific on how you utilize the dollars, and without the Board of Finance RTM approval, we can't then use those dollars, for some other project or purpose without coming through this body.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Correct. The field use, and I think, as I said, we engaged, we wanted to make sure we were meeting enhancing this project and building it such that we can not only meet the programmatic needs of the school, but also the various stakeholders, the sports organizations that are based here in Branford. And, and from that, lacrosse, soccer, football, they engage in some tournament play or some play and bring in some other teams. I expect that will be considered. However, I know the Board of Education right now is kind of going through a process where they determine the use of the fields. However, it is important to note, just as when we did the Walsh project, question came up, and I think it was Representative Morey in one of the committee meetings asking when we were putting the money into the pool and the auditorium space, is this just strictly school, or is this a community asset? And overwhelmingly the answer was this is a community asset. And that's no different from them with these fields and these projects. And from my discussion with the new superintendent, I think we share that same vision, that we're building essentially a community asset here. And that would be, and we want the community to use it. Although, again, during the school day, and the whole design is really to be, first and foremost, it is a school product.
I asked that question because I know for instance, in Little League, in this area that a lot of the towns have Little League teams, and they play up and down the coast, Orange, all the way to Clinton, and have to find fields to play those games. A lot of them are evening games, and I know that they're having trouble in some cases actually finding fields that they can use to schedule games between the different community teams. So.
And I will just also share with this group, although we haven't established anything formally, but just, and the superintendent is here, as well as Director of Facilities, Brendan Leddy. You know, we do recognize that, you know, with this especially coming online in the near future, but with all of our facilities, not only Board of Ed facilities, but town facilities, that we're looking at ways how we can improve scheduling and of these fields and other facilities. So there's a process and a way that we can schedule, and we can ensure that, you know, we're utilizing our fields to the full potential.
Great, thank you.
Majority Leader Everson, do you have a question?
Thank you. Tracy Everson for the district. Can I ask the people in the room, how many are parents of, and are most of you involved with leagues, or are you here because your kids play sports at Walsh? Both? Okay. All right, thanks.
Do you include past parents too, then?
I could.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think you should,
absolutely.
because a lot of people
Okay.
out here.
Definitely. Could the school superintendent come up and talk about how this is going to impact and, you know, further enhance essentially what is already existing at Walsh?
Good evening, everyone. So as far as enhancement, the big piece for us is the physical education program. So on a daily basis, when it's seasonable, those fields will be accessed by students and our PE teachers, and not just for physical education, but we also have recess for our students in 5th through 8th grade. So right now, not only is that the field's unusable a lot of the time because it takes a really long time to dry out. So I just walked it yesterday and I couldn't really walk the track, and so I tried to walk around the perimeter and you just sink. So that's days after a rain event. So it's offline more than it's online. And when that facility is used, students are tracking an insane amount of mud through the building as well, which causes a whole other problem, which our visitors will see in the evening because the halls are in pretty bad shape. In addition to the athletic programs that we do have after school, there are certainly community requests right now. More boys soccer has been the most common request since I've been here, followed by girls soccer, as well as several other programs that we hope to bring online over time, as long as there's interest that sustains it. And we did work out something in our new teacher's contract over the next 3 years that will make, I think, people more interested in coaching and starting new programs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me say this.
Representative Brooks. Well, he's here, for sure. Dr. Tramberg.
I don't want to make you walk twice.
Thank you. I already closed my rings today, so I appreciate it.
So on that note, I did email you because I asked this very question. I would love to, while I know that Branford has a tremendous club sports, situation. I don't know what word to use. But I would love to see, I personally would love to see a boys, girls soccer team, maybe even a field hockey team, definitely a lacrosse team on the scholastic level. And I think this field would, because you don't have a field you can play on now. Nobody's kidding ourselves here to think otherwise. But, I mean, there will be a cost associated to the taxpayers to do so. So, in addition, it's reasonable to assume that in addition to the cost to the taxpayers of this, there will be a cost to the taxpayer to implement the sports that would benefit, any kid who wants to play, because as we know, school sports are free.
So any increase in a program is an increase in money you're going to need somewhere. So the burden ultimately is on the taxpayer. It just depends on how it falls to the taxpayer. The piece, definitely the facilities right now have been a barrier to the programs existing, but the other barriers that I mentioned, we had some internal protocols that have been, I'll call them barriers, that have been removed, so we can see some of those programs be expedited and how they're brought to the students. Because I think everyone wants the same thing. We want students to access programs. We want the community to have access to fields. It's just a matter of making sure we have systems and processes to use it in an equitable way.
Any other questions? Representative Greenberg?
I don't have a question for you. I just wanted to make a comment. Representative Greenberg, First District, and I'm also the Vice President of Branford Youth Football. And I think I could speak on behalf of most of the people in the room. I have not received one call from a constituent against this project, not one email. I think we've delayed it long enough. I think that there's been plenty of meetings. Don and Jamie, you've had plenty of meetings explaining this, so thank you guys for doing another good job explaining the program and the fields. I think we need to vote to approve this so it can come to the full RTM on Thursday. We've done plenty of due diligence.
This is across from my house, and this is the first I'm really hearing about it. I still want a due process.
If you just moved here.
Are there any other questions from any members of the RTM and at this point, or the general public, to either First Selectman Cosgrove or Dr. Tranberg?
I have two more questions.
Two.
One is for Alex Paluzzi,
Yeah, I was gonna have Alex.
and I guess I'll ask the First Selectman this. So I did some math, and as you know, I'm not great at math.
This is directed to the First Selectman?
Yes, to the First Selectman, to you first. Sorry, to the First Selectman first. So I did some math, and if we borrow $7.6 million, and you're gonna correct me, or somebody else is gonna make fun of me over there. So it's $7.6 million, and I just wanna make sure I'm right about this. So we pay $7.6 million, we pay 8%, 9% back per year on our debt services, correct? What do we, on our debt services?
No, I think when you're referencing the 8 or 9%, I think our total budget, approximately 8.5% of our total budget goes to debt service. So
Correct. That's what I mean. I just don't know what I said. So if that's the case, then in theory, I think we're paying about $650,000 for the next 20 years on this project.
this project,
If you add this to the debt services and you pay it off in 20 years, wouldn't
well,
that
again,
be
it
reasonable?
all depends on how much we, first of all, we actually issue bonds for. Representative Henschel asked the question about repurposing the dollars. We may may receive grants or end up using funding from another source. But so it all depends on what we actually issue, and then when we issue it, what the rates are on that issuance. So we're going to amortize a project like this. Jim, what do you think? 20 years or 50? Probably would be amortized over 20 years, and it all depends on what the rates are. But I think the 8.5%, we're not paying 8.5% on this. We're paying, I think the 8.5% is, all of our bonding that we're paying off is roughly 8.5% of our total budget.
Correct.
Right.
That-
So it'll be amortized over whatever we end up issuing bonds for, whatever that dollar amount is. It may be the full 7.65, it may be less. And then when we issue that, the bonds and whatever that rate is at that, amortized over 20. Listen, this is gonna have a far less impact on anything else you're gonna be voting on in a couple months.
No, I'm just trying to, so, we're talking about the fields, right?
Yes,
But,
yeah.
but if I don't think about, I have a project, another project that I'm going to talk about in 2 weeks.
All right, so you're,
So that's $20 million. And if I'm prioritizing, if I had to prioritize, so this is, you're right, my math was wrong. You're right, 100%. 200.
but I think you're concerned,
You understand what I'm saying?
yes, sorry about that.
I don't care, I'm getting him too.
I think what your concern is that you know that there's other projects on the horizon.
Correct.
And in terms of what would that impact be in aggregate, right? And is that something we can sustain as a community? And I think the reason why this is before you, the Board of Finance considered this project as well and what the impact is. You may also recall the finance director did a presentation where, kind of laid out what is on the horizon. Plugged in some numbers, made some assumptions, to show what that potential impact is. The Board of Finance had that same, that presentation made and that information. They yet still voted, across party lines, bipartisan, unanimous for this project. I don't, the town of Branford, I know you've heard this before, I'll say it again, we've been recognized by the rating agencies of having very, strong debt management. Large part by our finance director who's here, and I'm sure he can answer any questions. And the Board of Finance in terms of, that laying out that plan, that strategy. In terms of, so it is at a level that is, we avoid spikes, right, by doing this. We've been roughly that 8.5% of our budget. We've been, you may recall, we were prior to, the Walsh Intermediate School project. Prior to this, we did laid out a strategy, a plan. We made some, some refunding, that saved us some money. We did some, advanced pay downs. We've had an aggressive schedule to take, bond and authorize and move forward with those projects to once again avoid any spikes in our due to bonding these projects or paying for capital projects. We manage that, and if we manage it, like I said, as that guide, that 8 to 9%, we avoid that spike. Which I think that's what your concern is.
Right.
And so
your debt service is going to go from 75 million-ish, 77, I think, is what I read. But
so this year,
and it's going to go to 100.
right?
In a blink of an
I
eye.
know you, and I know you've probably heard the finance director use this analogy all the time, many times. That you have to look at, the debt when in terms of these capital funding these projects is a bathtub. You want to maintain that water level. You got water going down the drain, and you don't want to open up the faucet too quickly where you overfill. So what's going down the drain, and you're still filling in the tub, and you're maintaining a nice even level. I mean, this year we paid off. You mentioned the 77 million or 70 million. We paid, I think over 7 million went to principal alone this year that we paid for paying off projects. So, you put that in the scale of what we're appropriating tonight. This really isn't going to have a major impact in terms of smoothing that out.
So, by your estimation and someone else's estimation, this won't affect that 8 to 9%. We would still continue to pay the 8 to 9% in debt services.
I think that's what the model showed, right, Jim? I mean, we were still staying there.
I promise I won't vote if I sit here.
But you'll make fun of me.
No, actually, I've seen you at meetings many years ago where you were commenting on the compounding of the teacher's contract. and your math was on. So I don't want to discount your math skills. Instead, what I think is, and Jamie's made the point, is you have to, you're looking at what we're adding from where we are, and you're saying, wow, that's going up a lot. But what you have to also take into account, as Jamie said, the water that's going down the drain, what's being paid off, okay? So, again, we did a model which I presented to the Board of Finance. It's not cast in stone. We will evaluate this model as we get closer to doing a bond issue or a note issue, depending on what I decide at the time. And basically, with that, we started the fiscal year at 77.1. We're going to end in this model at about 87 million in 2030. So that's an increase of about 9,925,000 over a period of years. And so, yeah, you're adding 76 million in debt, but you're also paying off a lot of debt. And again, the structures could be different. This is sort of a pro forma plan. In that pro forma plan, there was also a significant amount for contingencies. And we all know that there's certain things that happen, right? I mean, in the life of a town, there are opportunities that come up. Many people who have been on this board knows that all of a sudden there's an open space property that the town needs to consider, and folks bring that to us. Some things may cost more than what we estimate. The way construction costs are going now, you start looking at some of those projects, they could be very expensive. Does the town have a lot of aggressive projects and challenges? I think the fair answer is yes, but we also have a lot of assets. And so that's what we're trying to do, is offset some of that. Debt service as a percent of the budget going forward, I mean, it's actually going to be less than 8.5%. The Board of Finance is contemplating a debt policy in which the draft debt policy is at 8.5%. And so what does that mean? That means that 8.5 cents out of every budget dollar. And we don't see this project having an adverse impact on that, given our current repayment schedules and given what we might be adding in the future. And some of those projects that we've identified in our sort of pro forma analysis, there are other resources potentially available. Selling town assets. I didn't hear all of the question, but I heard Walsh Intermediate School project. So I think the question related to if the project is closed out and there's cash or bond proceeds that are available, and in that case we would move those proceeds against this project most likely. Similar thing that we did last May. You might remember we took the school ground road dollars, and we took some treatment plant dollars that were financed but not being spent, and we applied them against the animal shelter. So those are some of the things that we would do in this case. And then we've also, I mentioned at the Board of Finance meeting, working with Alex Paluzzi, the Foot Trust, Jamie, and Judge Tiernan, is we got the probate court to agree that if we wanted to, we could use Foot Trust grant dollars to offset a little piece of our debt service on that. So that was a piece that we were looking at. And again, stuff that we've had on our pro forma list, some of those things could be funded with grants, et cetera. So.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Director Finch?
Yeah. So, in having your projections, so
Yes.
you're projecting though that there's increase at like, so 2026, 3.85%, again, taxes going up in 2028.
I'm sorry, what percent did you say,
4.5, yeah.
I'm sorry.
And so, and an increase of in taxes, and then an increase in the debt service percent of the budget going up to 7.6% in 2029 from next year when paying off stuff to 6.3. So you're seeing a significant part of taxes increase every year, plus then increase in our percent of our budget going to debt service. So we are taking on a lot of additional debt, which is reflected in increase in taxes.
So basically, with the percentage increase in taxes, the model, which I said was conservative, right? And shows anywhere from 3.85 to 4.49. Is that right? That, we're looking at the same numbers. And the debt service as a percent of the budget, basically, is from 7.2%, and it never goes over 8.5%. So are you suggesting that that's a significant number?
I think it keeps going. I mean, you're seeing that money is going out, but now we're taking on additional debt over time.
Sure, and we're getting more projects over time.
We are, but I think it's.
They're not free, at least.
Yeah.
They're not free, so.
It's not, none of it's free, exactly.
Yeah. So what is your point?
The point is that we're seeing that.
And no, I'm not trying to be sarcastic, because
No,
we've had similar conversations.
Yeah, no, but that it is coming with a tax increase or a projected tax increase of getting up over 4% over the next few years.
Again, I think that was a conservative estimate. I mean, here's what I want to communicate. If you take anything away from the analysis, and the major driver of the tax increase is not the debt. The major driver of the tax increase is hiring 24 firefighters. It's hiring 2 additional police officers. It's possibly changing the police schedule. So I don't think it's complete to look at just the debt and lights. But I think that that's an important component. I don't want to discount that. So which is
I mean, we're trying to balance everything, right?
I'm
And
trying to thread a
right.
needle is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do.
Absolutely.
And so I think, and this is my own observation, is that over the past year, last year's budget, the fire department, we had $250,000 in contingency to fund the firefighters at Indian Neck. And they've made presentations. They made presentations to public services, and with all deference to the assistant chief, I am not a magician. And then we also are looking at some projects that the community has indicated they want, this being one of them. The police and the fire station at Acorn Road is also in line with the public safety. The Coastal Vulnerability Working Group has identified what they perceive as vulnerabilities at the treatment plant, and we have a study to do that. We know that if we want to make the treatment plant more resilient, those are going to cost a lot of money, right? So what I try to do is when you look at all those things that are out there, I think that any person just casually observing it would have an immediate sense of despair, right? There's all these things that are happening. How are we ever going to pay for this? And so what I try to do is take what's out here and maybe bring it to the size of this table, recognizing that between this side of the table and where Josh's right arm is, there's still some room in there. And I also know over the years, as you guys will find out, is it's very important to try to manage expectations, right? So people will anchor to those tax increases. I think we've seen evidence of that. And so what we're trying to do is try to manage so that we could do better than that. And these things are complex, and complex problems, as you know, as a scientist, are not always solvable, but they have to be managed, right? And so that's what we're trying to do. But we still have to live out every budget, every bond issue, and we're going to do the best we can to try to do that. Our rating report, the last one we had, talked about $84.4 million in debt, more than we have today. And it talked about, it says management is continually reevaluating capital plans and balancing infrastructure needs against budgetary realities while weighing interest rates against projections. So this is what we're talking about doing tonight, is we're looking at a project. How does that project fit into the overall plan? How does that project fit into a pro forma debt analysis? And how does that debt analysis fit into an overall financial plan, which includes significant dollars for public safety? And again, it's not for me to decide. I mean, I think that these are somewhat subjective observations, right? Is 4% or 3% or some number unrealistic if over the time a number of additional projects will get done, if the fire department's services and police services are enhanced. Branford's not a high tax town. On an equalized mill rate, we're in the lower third in the state, and we offer all of these services. So I think, yes, the numbers you cited are in that report. That's a verifiable fact. It's a fallacy of logic to argue verifiable facts, so I'm not here to do that. But I think that I think you have to kind of look at it in the whole context of everything else that's happening. And I think that and I'm confident that many of you, this is your first time hearing this. I mean, and even the bond resolution that the RTM is going to vote on has about 7 components that all mean different things, right? And so when I was talking to Tracy yesterday, I think that one of the things that I'm going to try to do is to try to explain and teach at the same time, recognizing that folks are new. I guess that's my long-winded way of saying you're right. Those are the numbers, but I'm not debating the numbers. I'm just taking a different view of the context.
If I might jump in here for a bit of clarification for the audience, because I think some may not have realized that the conversation began with Representative Brooks asking a specific question about what would be the impact on the debt and the payment schedule for this particular project. But the conversation we've just been having here with Mr. Finch actually works on the 5-year projection that he's put out for the town, for all of the spending, all of the bonding that he is looking at as a possible in the next 5 years. So how much would that be in taxes? And there was some discussion there of how much would be an increase in tax every year, how much would be in bonding. These are total numbers. The reason why on this side of the aisle we're interested in this is because we are in fact the Ways and Means Committee, so our job is to look at numbers, and that's why Representative Waterman is there, and that's why I'm paying very close attention to what Mr. Finch has said. But that's actually a bit off from where why we are here this evening.
I apologize.
No, please. It's a very important discussion, one that we will be revisiting because the spending and the bonding for the town over the next 5 years, and more specifically for the upcoming budget year, is going to be under intense discussion for the next few months because that's the job. Very much appreciate what Mr. Finch is telling us here, because he's laid out a plan which then is a point of discussion. So thank you very, very much for that. I think we should bring this back now to where this particular project, because I know that a lot of people in this room would like to go home.
And I think we do too, and I think we're going to get there. One moment, sir. Representative McCall, you got a question that you wanted to address relative to the Wall Street School project?
Yes, Representative McCall, District 1. I have a question for the gentleman sitting here, and I think for the...
Louder, Mark.
I have a question for the gentleman sitting here, and I think for the guy with the suit at the back from education.
Okay.
Yes.
Superintendent
of schools.
That's the superintendent.
My question. So, I just want to, Mr. Dan said, bring it back to what we were talking about, summarize what you said at the opening of your statement, see if I remember everything from the beginning, and maybe you can tweak it where I got it wrong. You were contracted to do a survey of the town and the parks
Mark,
and
could
grounds.
you keep your voice up, please? I see some members of
Yes.
the audience asking.
So, can I stand? So, let me
I
start.
can reiterate it too.
Yeah, so
just
you were
tell-
contracted to do a
Town.
survey of the parks and the grounds.
Yep.
And I got 3 things I think I picked out from your presentation. A, we either had too many grounds, you said, for the size of the community. B, if we upgrade some of the grounds, then we won't need that amount of grounds. Like if we have, let's just throw a number, if we have 10 and we upgrade, we make 6 nice grounds, then we don't need 10, so we have 4 space. And within the 6 now, right, we're just using numbers. We need like 1 really good ground, state-of-the-art technology. So that's where this ground comes in.
Okay.
So is the state-of-the-art ground that you recommended that we don't have that we need?
Correct.
Right? Is
Yep.
it because of this was the good the location at the best location out of the 6 make you choose Walsh, or is it because Walsh needed the ground, so we decided to make them the state of the art, right? Ground. And with reference to the representative who said she is the president for a football team, I think we tried to ask the question 3 times tonight, and Jamie danced around it, that what would happen to the other schools, in fairness, right, who don't have a state-of-the-art ground, would have equal and fair access to practice and play when they have inter-schools competition. What would happen to her football team? She's advocating for a ground that she don't even know our football team is going to get to play on it, because there's no definite yes that yes other groups are going to get to play. Your answer was, if I remember correctly, word for word, yeah, we work on it. Yeah, no, somebody going to somebody with the phone will turn on the light. What's the plan? We're going to make this 7, because you said the other grounds will be within a 10-year period. It could be next year or it could be next 10 years. So you know they always say you hope for the best, expect the worst the other way. So let's say the other grounds coming in next 10 years.
Yep.
We're going to have this ground here alone. How can the community get the best use of this ground? Right? What the plan for have all the other football team, all the other teams to have fairness in terms of fair competition.
Yep.
You don't want Walsh winning all the trophy every game.
I'll chime in first.
So, and like she said, she never got a call from any member opposing the ground, which is a good thing. Nobody opposed the ground. We all agree. I play every sport there is on the face, and what I invent sport when I didn't have anything to play. So we all for sport. We just wanted to wrap our head around what's going on. You come to me and said, hey, here's a ground, but we don't know if somebody else can get to play on it.
Okay. And I'm going to reiterate it in my responses. I'm going to keep it as short and sweet as I can, but I want to make sure I answer your question, so let's have a back and forth with it a little bit. We were tasked with two items. One was looking at these fields. When we first got hired, we said, well, we're going to accelerate the study so we know what the town is lacking and not lacking. Okay, you have other facilities. They're not optimal. They're not like prime facilities, but they work and they're getting the job done. There's lacrosse played in other areas. When we focused in and when we started prioritizing our selections, you know, this speaks to the most use in terms of the community. It speaks to, even the soccer club said, well, we can run a U8 clinic here, go the opposite way. You can paint the lines on there. It can be used on a Saturday. The assumption that we made in our recommendation is it's first and foremost a school. All right, we need to be very strict on that. During the school year, it's a school, but after school, on weekends, during the summer, you know, our intent when we designed it is it's going to be used by other sports. I mean, the youth football is not a school sport. It's a youth football league. They played on that, I'll call it a mess out there for years, okay? And they made do with what they had. We looked at this site specifically, based on that input, but also the input from the school to make sure that Walsh School is being represented. The other schools in town, the fields they had in it, the elementary schools and the high school, were evaluated during that process. Improvements were recommended for some of them, deductions, subtractions, additions of stuff. We looked at fields. We couldn't help not looking at other things like courts and things like that. The analysis, which was done by our partner SLR, who were out of Florida, they're a nationwide analysis group. They performed a pro forma to look at this field and a couple of others that we looked at to develop how we can handle the demographics. We looked at demographics. We did interviews. It should go on note to you, the board, the 2 committees that I'm talking to tonight. We had 3 public outreach meetings over the last year. There was a website devoted to this. We were at inland wetlands for two different sessions within the wetlands, 2 different sessions with planning and zoning. So we know it was vetted out there. Anything, we ranked them. We talked with we're working for Jamie and the superintendent and Alex. We said we are going to provide a ranking based on the most inclusive way of doing these fields. You know, not outside of that. And we've provided that ranking in that report. I think Walsh is number 1. I believe the 2nd or 3rd, and I don't want to go without it. I have to pull it up, but you know, we go to the underprivileged side of the town where we can have some renovations to a playscape or remodify a field there. We made improvements. People behind me are going to kill me, but the softball fields have some security issues that we think should be addressed earlier, but it can be absorbed into a smaller budget. You know, balancing some of the tennis courts and pickleball courts in town. We made some recommendations on that, even though it was outside our purview. So we're looking for the most inclusion based on the data that we were provided. Some of that data was from stakeholders within the town and within the school system. We talked with the athletic directors. We talked with some of the teachers. We've also talked with a lot of your sports in town. And we also looked at, other sports. We made recommendations for a disc golf course on a site because it was brought up to us from people in town. We made recommendations on elaboration on arboretum type aspects where we can put trees on certain sites. Dog park was mentioned. Outdoor aquatics. There was a lot of things that were brought up. It is in the report. Minor recommendations. You heard them discussing the whole scheduling item. We said there has to be a more cohesive scheduling system that's fair and balanced to balance out the uses on the schools, but also the private use. And then we do a lot of independent study. We've got people that live in the community or in the neighboring communities. We looked at this site. We looked at the site outside to see how it's interacted during recreational facilities. We looked at Walsh safely outside. We're not looking at the kids, but we're looking at the site to check it out to make sure how it uses after school programs. How is it done on Saturdays? Things along those lines. I think we've done a lot of that in tandem with this project. This project rose to the top because it benefits the most residents and the community. I'd be hard pressed that you can't go walk around that track or utilize that track on a Saturday morning. If there's something going on at the school, they have an event, yeah, it's off limits. I'm sorry, you got to come back in 2 o'clock. But we always felt that it was a community asset built on the standards of a school grounds, campus.
I'll add that we're adding a digital system, so when people are requesting use to the facility, they'll get a fast response. Because of the transition of lots of things, including our director of facilities this fall, things were very slow. I have many witnesses to that, I'm sure, in the room right now, and that's something that will be resolved. And it did start as a school project, went to the town, and it's moving back to the school for the facilities management piece. But the goal is for it to be used.
Thank you, Mr. Soltruda and Dr. Tranberg. So I think that Representative Black had a question he wanted to raise, and I think we're going to open it up to members of the public for any comments or concerns or inquiries they have, and then bring this to a vote. That's the plan. So, Representative Black.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just to Jim Finch ran away. Is he still in the building? I was trying to hide back there. Just Jim, on this project, the 7.6, we project borrowing for 20 years at probably 4% in the present market.
Yeah,
Jim, okay, and my math says that would run about $300,000 a year in interest. I'm just kind of trying to follow up on Josh's comment before.
Yeah, that would seem about right. 7 million would be 280. So yes, I would agree.
Okay, I just, so we know what the interest on this is running us, and then we'll be paying on principal and amortizing the bond over time.
Right, and not to belabor the analysis that was done, but we use 4.1%. So.
Oh, 4. Okay. I'm just.
Yeah.
I threw out 4 just because.
Yeah, and the rates are actually under that now, but again.
Yeah.
That tries to be somewhat conservative in the approach. So.
Okay. Thank you.
That it, Peter?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Finch. So we're going to open it up to Alex. Were you going to say something?
I'm on the chair.
The chair. Okay. All right. So why don't we hear first from the Mr. Piscola, who is the chair of the Board of Recreation, who's going to address us, and then we'll go to the committee. And I see you, sir, over there, and maybe I see you out there, so we'll get to you, and anybody else that wants to speak, and then we'll bring this to a vote afterwards.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for
Hope I
coming.
speak loud enough. I've never been accused of being soft-spoken. I'm a little hoarse today. First off, I would encourage both parties, both committees, and the full RTM to endorse this product 100%. I think I have a unique perspective. And this is not to pat myself in the back, believe me, but I've been involved with youth activities in town for more than 50 years. From when this property was Old Man Elgin's hayfield, okay, before there was ever a school there. I've been president of Branford Little League, Branford Youth Basketball, I was a founder. Branford Youth Football, I was a founder. I've been involved with too many things because I guess I'm too dumb sometimes to say no. Still involved to a certain extent. I'm proud to be the chairman of the Board of Recreation. I'm also still involved at the high school. I've been the PA announcer for sports there for 33 years. I'm involved in a lot of things, have been involved in a lot of things. I've seen it where we had very few sports in town. We didn't have any soccer, boys or girls. We didn't have any lacrosse, boys or girls. But there's so many things that have changed, and yet our facilities really haven't improved. Okay, we were very involved to put lights and turf at the high school a number of years back. It was like pulling teeth. It was one of the best things we ever did because people use that field. If it wasn't pouring rain now and we drove over there, there'd be people walking that track. So I behoove everyone to please approve this. Your constituents want it, and the majority of the people in town want it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service.
And my only comment is, again, I go back 31 years. I was with Paul on the project at the high school, and it was really tough getting that facility. It was the best thing that Branford ever did. The difference with this, if you each have a copy of my fields needs assessment, it really explains everything that all these people have been talking about in sports, the conditions of the fields, where we were. And I think the question, the gentleman asked the question over here about who else, it's going to be with the school children. These kids, these parents, their kids are school children. They're all the same kids. They all use all our facilities and stuff like that. But number one, the imprint was there at Walsh and Intermediate School, like Branford. And if you read through the end of this, it's almost not a perfect document, but it really shows what we've been fighting for all these years. Before this community center was built, all the previous selectmen, number one on my document was to make the middle school into a multi-purpose facility. We spent all that money to build a new school. That was one of the first facilities that I saw that we weren't going to take care of the outsides. It was just going to be another Band-Aid. And we went through all the processes, and this document was back over 2.5 years ago, but I asked for that field, which is not under my auspices, it's under the Board of Education, and not the community center here, because I thought that was really important, and that somewhere down the road, we would pay for it. And when COVID came, a few of the parents are here today, they came out looking for those fields when the school was being built. And that was 2018. Here we are in 2024, and we're still waiting. We still hopefully have this meeting and one more meeting that we can get this approved and go out to bid. And when we talk about children, a lot of people forget this now too. Our kids start at toddlers, okay, coming to games, okay? And that's one of the reasons why there's a playground inside of that. So if they come to the games, that their parents want to have some activity for them, because they're not going to watch their brothers and sisters game. They want to play. And there's a basketball court, and there's space out there, and there's a track. All those things can happen at the same time. But I thought we were looking for one turf field. We're getting two, and I've mentioned this. The Queen Mary has arrived. And there's a lot more that's going into that. And there is a cost, understandable. But our kids start sports now. You're saying there's less kids in the school system. There's more sports that are trying to come on, as you heard, from parents that want it now. And they start sports at age 3. When we were here back as kids, we started at age 9. It's 3 now. Big difference. Girls and boys. So that's a big difference from what we had in the 70s where we got to now. And that's why we came to that situation where that's not going to answer all the questions for the future down the road, but we have a roadmap now to go there down the road to try to improve some other facilities, as we can go. But all those people in all those sports, youth football, youth lacrosse, youth softball, field hockey, soccer, all those sports will be able to use that. And I won't have to be saying, Representing Greenberg, sorry, we have to cancel again today. You can't step on the field, as you heard what the superintendent said there. I was there Sunday, and I brought some friends by there, and you know, this has been going on since 1972. So the time has arrived, as I kind of mentioned. So I just, implore you to vote this for, the kids in our community. And not just, it's all the age groups. If you think about it, parents can walk the track, different age groups can. And what people don't understand is like, well, what about the other, constituents and the grandparents? The grandparents, we see more grandparents at games than parents because both parents are working. So it's really for every age group that gets to enjoy, that come to these games and support this athletics. Yes, Josh.
Thank you, Al.
To you, one quick question. So will the, as you know, I've been involved with club sports for many, many years, but I've also been involved with pickup sports with youth, and that was always challenging. So will the rec department, with this facility, help the general public get access to use the fields, whether it's softball, football, but use the fields competitively? I mean, we're going to spend $1.1 million on lights.
Yes.
I think it's hard to ask of the Board of Ed for the Board of Ed to deal with lights at 8 o'clock on a Wednesday, whereas the rec department, you guys are more set up for that. Is that going to be something that the rec department is going to make itself available to do?
Yeah, overwhelmingly, the answer is yes. And I can say now with the new superintendent in place now and the new facilities director and new athletic director, Brendan Letty's here now. And I just going to put a shout out, and I don't mean to do this, but, and a lot of the parents might not agree with what's happening right now, but we have never had, in the last 13 years, we have never had better communication with the Board of Education as a whole, the whole board, the superintendent, the facilities director, and the athletic director. And we're already communicating and making inroads, and the boards are looking at policies, and our board's looking at policies to try to make those, to make it a little bit more seamless and usable for them. And, we have a parent that was involved a couple of years ago to try to get a couple things down. Her name is Jen Orlando. And all I can say is that she understands kind of like what's going on now, and she worked with our youth basketball right now. And everybody wants more practices and more games, and we understand that. But we have tournaments going on at the community house right now and at the middle school right now for our tournaments. So there's a lot of opportunities for that to happen, and there's a lot of scheduling go into that. But everybody has been fighting. I've been fighting with people. I have to decide where I'm going to put people on fields now with this new, just like we did when the school was constructed. We have to move people again. So that'll give us the advantage to move forward. But it'll be a big difference right now. But is it the end? No, it's not the end. I think there's many things else that might, like one thing about the middle school they mentioned was we're actually doing it within the Foot Trust, which is not taxpayer dollars, to help them with some fencing and some safety netting, as well as redoing the fields with new clay. So we've already got that within our budget, waiting for the response from the Foot Trust. So those are some of the inroads that we're doing in some of the parks that we can try to improve within what we're doing now. So.
Thank you, Alex. I think you touched on something too that wasn't mentioned a lot. There's just a non-economic factor, pride in the town, and feelings of other resources that help the individual, the citizens of the town feel good about themselves. I have 3 children play football and all AAU sports, 2 towns up from here, and raised all 3 of them. When I moved to Branford, one of the very first things I noticed personally was the fields were just a different world than anything I had become accustomed to where I raised my family. Thank you. So we're going to...
In the interest of time, it's a school night. Do you mind?
100%. Sir, I still know you're out there. I'm going to get you. I still know you're out there and anybody else, but why don't we bring the children for school time? Please do. Just come on up and introduce yourself. And
they won't fight, I promise.
Not us, they won't.
Hi, my name is Sophia, and I'm just like here to talk about how like
Hi, Sophia.
how like oh the mic's oh how like when yeah so a lot of my teammates like on the when we were playing for softball, like on the basketball courts, like and stuff, the ball would go there and we would have to chase after it, and a lot of the time we would fall and slip, and one time I fell and it wasn't a good scene, so I just feel like it would be better if there's like maybe like something to do with that, you know, maybe like move it so there's more room for the softball fields, because the balls go really far from depending on how the player like hits, you know.
Thank you so much for that, Share.
Hi, I'm Ava, and I'm also here to talk about like how the football fields and the softball fields get very muddy like on certain days. So sometimes on the fields, like on the football field, I go to play soccer with my friends or something, and it gets so muddy that if I'm just walking around, I like hit a muddy part and I almost like slip and fall. It's just, and if I'm running, like I almost slip and fall. It's basically like a safety hazard. And the softball fields, they also get very muddy. Some of the teachers don't let us go even near it because it gets so muddy all the time. There's big puddles everywhere, and I'm like, and sometimes I just want to like play, I don't know, wiffle ball or maybe like kickball, but you can't because it's too muddy. So maybe and also the grass, maybe you could put like turf or something, maybe.
Maybe we just will do that. Thank
Maybe.
you girls so much for coming. I appreciate it.
They do a better job than I do.
Say your name before you.
David Falsigno, Lantern View Drive. A parent, also president of Branford Girls Softball, and I know there's a lot of other sports organizations here. I have asked this question, and I know it's come up. Those fields, from what I was told, will be utilized by the middle school sports primarily first, then any Branford youth football, soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, softball, as needed. I implore you again, as I spoke previously at your RTM meeting last week, that I implore you to vote for this. This is something that they need. This isn't for me. It's not for, it is for all of us, but it's primarily for the kids. They need this. You just heard my kids talk about a situation last year when my daughter was running after a ball, had to run up the hill onto the basketball court with spikes on, and she took a header and split her pants and almost got hurt. If I did that, I'd be in the hospital. So this is something that's long overdue. As I think somebody said, this hasn't been touched since the 70s. And no, nobody told me to be here tonight. I'm here on my own accord as a representative of Branford Girls Softball and as a parent who pays taxes in this town. And this is something I would want to spend my taxes on. So please, do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Dave! Come on, buddy!
Sir, you want to step forward?
My name is Mike Nicasati, 18 Garden Street.
Take the
Mike,
microphone, they don't
if
get.
you could come up here so the TV can pick up what you're saying. We're recording.
Mike DiCasati, 18 Garden Street. I'm just 2024. I moved to this town in 2008. I raised my son here. He's a senior at Branford High School. Will be graduating. He played youth football, lacrosse, and basketball throughout his youth years. I can't count how many times practices were canceled on that field because of rain. A gentleman said that there hasn't been anything done to that since 1971, which is evident.
The superintendent came up, said he walked the field a couple days ago and he sunk in the track. It's an inoperable field. We have one turf field in this town. Go to all the neighboring towns. Go to Guilford. Go to Madison. Go to North Haven. Go to Clinton. Go to Milford, Foreign, Jonathan Law, Wallingford, Lyman Hall, Sheehan, and you will find several turf fields. Okay? There's a safety aspect to this field. The girls weren't exaggerating, and I can give you far worse examples than what they gave you. This is an investment in the town, it's an investment in the constituents, and it's an investment in the kids. And it's something that this town has been needed for a long time. We first got together at the fire station in, what year was it? 2018? When this all started. 6 years later, and we're still talking about this. The last meeting, someone said they wanted to walk the fields. This has been in the works forever. Go walk the fields. They're open. Just go there. There's no gates. As far as the use of the field, it's really simple. After school, it's for after school sports. Later on in the day, it's for youth sports. And all the other hours, it's for anybody to enjoy. The high school, we have one turf field that houses in the fall girls soccer, boys soccer, girls field hockey, boys football. Okay? In the spring, track after school, and then boys and girls lacrosse, flip-flop schedules. From 3 to 4:30, 4:30 to 6:30, and 5:30 to 8 or 7:30, the practices that run through. The track's there for the for everyone to walk. And if someone wants to walk and the coach doesn't mind them walking when they're at practice, they let them walk. Right? It's there for the weekend when there's no one using for the kids to play. Whether they shoot soccer on net or they're shooting lacrosse balls or whatnot. We need this facility for our town, for our kids. Okay? And this is going on long enough. So I appreciate everybody. I know you guys all serve and you're not getting paid. And you do this because you love the town. At least I hope you're doing this because you love the town. So if you love the town, vote for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see your hands, guys, and I'm just calling in the order that I see them. Thank you.
Hi. Most of you know me, Jennifer Orlando, Branford resident. Mom of two. My son's 12 years old. My daughter is 7. So I have one in middle school and one in elementary. My parents were longtime residents, both with the last name Orlando as well, and graduated from Branford High School. I'm concerned about the debating in this room. So I'm concerned that people are saying that this is the first time they're hearing these things or seeing these things when this has been going on for so long. $400,000 was spent on surveying things. Numbers have been handed in. And I'm concerned, I guess, maybe with the divide in town, and if this is going to be protocol, why would somebody like me that is willing to pay $2,000 for a sport, why would I stay? Why wouldn't I go to another school system that has these facilities already? Why would I fund a town with my tax dollars if everything's such a challenge in this town? Because most people would take on a tax increase if they were going to increase making the town better. Am I right? So small numbers back and forth. I know this is what you represent. But this isn't something new. Jim Finch went over this. It's almost an embarrassment when a group is this big in this room with children in the room that you made children wait until 9 o'clock to 13-year-olds and, you know. So if you want more people to leave the town and not have tax dollars to fund and pay for the $75 million that needs to be refunded, then you need to go with the majority of what's going on here, in my opinion. I know that's my opinion, and I may be feeling strongly, but I hear from community members saying, why should I stay here? Why shouldn't I go to Madison? Why shouldn't I go to this town and stuff? And now, coming to these meetings year after year, month after month, I'm starting to hear what they're saying. And I almost feel bad. And if we're representing the town, we need to represent the town as a whole together and not look at something and stand back and say, we're afraid to go on a tax increase and make facilities better or something better. And then be years behind like we either already were or be in a situation like East Haven. Schools and facilities are behind over there because they chose not to do what we're trying to do here. So I think that this is just the first step. If this passes, I would also echo everybody else that has spoken, that this is for the community. This is for all different levels. And to scrutinize it, if it's going to go to soccer, if it's going to go to this, if it's going to go to that, let's get it approved first and get there, and let's put the shovel in the ground. Otherwise, I'm upset with who we've elected to sit in front of me today. So, and I don't know, I'm sure there's other people in this town would feel the same way. They would just walk and go find homes elsewhere to raise their children. So I hope my point is made. I'm a very well representative community member, PTA president, vice president of basketball, and secretary on football. So I know that I'm coming at you maybe with something a little bit harsher versus a beg and a plea. But the reality needs to set in with everyone here that I'm looking directly in the eye. And to go back and forth and talk about turf and studies like this was all presented. It wasn't something new. Mr. Josh Brooks, you've been on RTM for how long? Thank you. Have a good night.
How long?
Ask them. 7 terms.
You can answer.
7
I
years.
didn't know I was talking. I'm sorry. I was allowing her to. I thought it was rhetorical. Sorry. I apologize.
Okay, there you go. Just wanted to keep the order as I saw it. Come on, I want you to identify yourself. Can we keep it down so everybody can hear, please, the speaker? Thank you.
Okay, hi. I was not planning on speaking tonight, but sitting here tonight, I could just feel my blood boiling. Very similar to kind of what Jen said, the conversation tonight, as someone who has lived in this town my whole life, who loves Branford, who played on those exact fields as they are today. I have 2 kids growing up in this town right now, one at the middle school, one at the elementary school. I'm a teacher here. I did speak at the last meeting over my concerns of the social emotional of kids these days after everything they've been through and how big of a role sports is to help and how these fields are the first step. And sitting here, I can't not talk because I'm talking for my own 2 boys and I'm talking for the kids. We have major field and faculty issues, outdoor and indoor. As Mr. Paluzzi said, we have a brand new team sitting right behind us who have been wonderful, and thank you. I know we're moving forward with so many things, and we're on the right track, and it's just such a great feeling. But sitting here tonight and debating this project that has been talked about for so many years is just disheartening. As someone said at the last meeting, we are not adding fields, we're making the ones we have usable. Like, it's a first step. It's just a no-brainer to me. We're not asking for more. We're asking for these fields to come so that we have safe fields for our kids. Sorry, I just have some notes here. Not only are they impacting our sports, but they're impacting our middle school. I just left conferences at the middle school. The school is gorgeous. This was part of that project. Go speak to our kids, go speak to our teachers. We heard our superintendent today. Our fields are unusable for recess. It's not just our sports fields. Our kids use those for recess. As you heard a teacher at the last meeting say, they struggle to get our students in wheelchairs down there. They're not handicapped accessible. There's so many things wrong that we can fix with this. I know everybody sitting here, or at least I really hope, are thinking of what's best for our town, and I appreciate that very much. And I hear your concerns about what might be coming down the pike as far as budget requests. Because yes, of course there will be, there always will be, and especially in this area, we're way behind as a town in this area. I also hear a lot of questions about how will the public be able to use this, and I appreciate your thoughts on that, and I understand. However, what I think everybody is kind of forgetting right now is this is part of the Walsh project. This is for our kids. Everyone seems to be veering off what it's truly about, and we're here to talk about our Walsh fields, our kids' recess fields, our PE fields, our youth sports fields. Our school and children of this town are the priority with this project, and it's been held up long enough. We need to stop dancing around all of these other issues and just think about what it's truly about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Reddick. A lot of emotion tonight, and I think some people are very polite. I may not be so polite. I'm embarrassed. I may have your name wrong, but Mr. Toohill said the fields have not touched since 1971. I was 15 years old. Think of you. Some of you were not born. Our new superintendent cannot walk the track. He's stuck in mud. Dom, who's given us the estimate, he ruins his shoes. Kids can't use the field. And the other part, and if they do use the field, they go home and throw their clothes away because of the dog and the bird crap on the field. I hear about, is it safe? I got news for you. We're not trailblazers. There's been tens of millions of dollars on studies on turf fields. Dom, you may know better than me. Tens of millions. You guys know more? You shouldn't be sitting here. You should be on Wall Street. Mr. Brooks, that's $180,000. You know why we're sitting here today? Because no one's touched the field in 51 years. If you did it 20 years ago, we might be talking about $1 million. Let's push it down the road so we can sit here 4 years from now and say, can we spend $12 million? We have great leaders. We have a great finance guy. You gotta be kidding me. Between the last RTM meeting and tonight, you have made Branford Television the most watched television network in the country. It is now a comedy show. For you newly elected, this has been an agenda item for a long time. To sit here and say, oh, don't run for office unless you know what you're getting into. That's why we vote for you. We assume you know what you're getting into. If you want to run the office to join a T club, go join a T club. You represent us. This town has a lot coming. You're gonna have to spend money. The key is spend it wisely.
like the gentleman said, Guilford, I got news for you. They have 5 turf fields. Madison has 4 or 5. What's our claim to fame? We resurfaced stars 2-3 times. R1. The last RTM meeting, I said we have not added a facility in 40 years, and I was corrected. We added a skate park. A skate park, which is now closed. 40 years this town has added a skate park. Jen said it best. I am disappointed. The only good thing that's happened since these last 2 meetings, I don't think you'll ever have a meeting again where people don't show, because you're losing the trust. Do the right thing for the kids. It's embarrassing. They get recess canceled because they can't go out. It's embarrassing if you're in a wheelchair, you can't go. It's hurting their education. We didn't screw them up enough with COVID. Let's just continue it. They need your help. It's about time you step up and act like adults and the people that we elected. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I didn't plan on speaking either. I've been to a few of these meetings. My name's Tony Colgiovanni, longtime Branford resident, graduated in '94. Played on that field 90, 91, 92, 93, high school soccer. It was mush then. It's still mush now. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what everybody else is. I'm not going to talk about this or that or the fields. I want to thank Paluzzi. I want to thank First Selectman. I want to thank pretty much everybody in the backside of the room for trying to make this happen. You guys up here, I don't know, you guys make a good fight, you make a good argument, obviously that's why you're here. Right, wrong, this, that, but let's not fight anymore. Let's start to build. Let's do it for the young people. Let's do it for the kids growing up, because that's going to be our community coming forward. These little kids, this is who we're doing it for. And we're doing it for all the adults too, but it starts with the young community. If they have nothing to do, like other people said, people are gonna leave the town. They're gonna play sports elsewhere. Every other town has beautiful facilities. We can have it too in Branford. We have a great town in Branford. Let's make Branford great. Let's stop the fight and start the dig. Thank you.
All right, so thank you all for your comments. So I think that we're gonna, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Excuse me.
Perry Maresca, Economic and Business Development Manager. I appreciate you all wishing to dive deep into this, presumably out of concern for the taxpayers of this great town. But let me assure you, the price tag of this is not an expense. It's an investment. An investment in our facilities, an investment in our athletes, an investment in our students, an investment in our families, an investment in our community, a bargain for the town. When wearing my economic development hat, I consistently hear business owners praising our town for the infrastructure and facilities we have, for the services we provide, for the way of life we offer. When wearing my taxpayer hat, I respect the need for being prudent, for watching our dollars. We do that. Our first selectman does not waste money. Coupled with the extremely sound practices of our finance director, Branford continuously receives AAA bond ratings, year after year, after year, after year, after year. When wearing my parent and now grandparent hat, I implore upon you all to not delay this investment. I too was a child when those fields were first constructed, and yes, that was a long time ago. Please, let's move forward on this immediately. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're gonna, oh, we have one more, I beg your pardon.
Last statement.
State your name.
Neil Sullivan, 8 Hannah Drive. I'll be very brief. A few weeks ago, I was very disheartened by the meeting that I was present at, yet I was very excited to see 2 new meetings scheduled this week. This was an extension of the Walsh project, okay? This is focused on the educational needs of every elementary child in our town that filters to Walsh. You've heard about investment. The return on investment for the taxpayers of this town is the future of this town. And I truly believe that if we don't improve our infrastructure, starting with this facilities project, the numbers are going to continue to dwindle educationally. Families are going to leave. Okay, this is a great step. It was planned for. It starts with the educational needs of our students. It extends to the whole community. I hope you take politics aside and do what's best. The ROI and the long-term picture on this, to me, is unquestioned. Please do the right thing.
Okay, before I jump the gun, am I seeing any other hands?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Anthony.
If there's no one else that wants to speak, I'd like to make a motion to approve this item.
Second. Do we have to do this by committee, you think?
Yes, we do. This is a joint meeting, but in fact, there are two committees here, and both of them need to vote on it.
Make a motion to approve.
Individually, if I might finish.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
So I'd like to read the resolution. The resolution authorizing an appropriation of $7,650,000 for the Walsh Intermediate School Field Improvement Project, and the financing of said appropriation by the issuance of general obligation bonds of the town and notes in anticipation of such bonds in an amount not to exceed $7,650,000 therefore, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the representative town meeting. I would point anyone to the website that has the agenda for this meeting or for the previous meeting in the Board of Finance, because along with this resolution, there are 7 sections that outline very specifically all the bonding requirements that go along with this as part of the legal requirements. But those sections are being incorporated in what we vote on tonight. So Representative Hines has moved, and Representative Black has seconded. All in favor on the Board of Ways and Means, excuse me, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? For Ways and Means, this carries.
For Administrative Services Attorney Emma has made a motion. Was that seconded? Seconded. Mr. Toohill. So all those in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and any abstentions? Pass unanimously to this committee. Motion to adjourn. Second.
Second, you second?
All those in favor?
Seconded it?
I second.
All right, you seconded it? All right.
Ways and Means.